A for-in loop simply iterates over all the properties that are present inside the current object, but it also adheres to two rules. First rule being the property should not be of type symbol. The second rule being that property should also be enumerable. Once all the properties are listed down that adhere to that particular rule, the for-in loop iterates over all of those. Once it's done with the current object, it then moves up in the prototype chain and then continues the process all over again. That is how a for-in loop works in a nutshell.
Hey guys, to start off, I'm fetching some basic data from JSON placeholder. Let's take a look at the data that I'm getting. So I'm getting an object that has 4 properties. First one being user ID, then ID, title, and completed. Let's try to iterate over all the properties using a for-in loop. So what I'll do is that let key in to do, and then I'll console log the key. And if I run this, I get all the keys get console logged using the for-in loop. Now, what about the two rules that we discussed? The first rule was, let me write it down, that key should not be of type symbol. Okay, and the second rule was key should be enumerable. Okay, let's try to add a key that is of type symbol and see if that is getting console logged or not. So what we'll simply do is that I'll create a new object, new obj. I'll have all the to do properties there, and then I'll also add a new property called symbol, new prop, and then I'll assign it a value of 1, 2, 3. And then I'll try to iterate it, and let's run this again. I'll remove the console log. Okay, so now you can see it's still giving me 4 keys. It's not giving me symbol new prop. And if I console log this object, new obj, and then try again, you see it has 5 keys now: user ID, ID, title, completed, and a symbol. But it's not iterating over this particular property using a for-in loop. So that's the first rule for you. Okay, it's very important because it can be asked in interviews as well. Now let's move on to the second rule. So what does second rule say? Second rule say the key should be enumerable. So let's add a new key. I'll simply say new key and 1, 2, 3. Okay, and now I'll try to iterate over it. So you see it has 5 keys now, and it's also iterating over a new key because it's not of type symbol. Now what is this enumerable thing? So let's start off by creating a new property for new obj, but this time we'll be using object constructor. So we'll simply do object dot define property, and then I'll pass in the object to which I want to add a new property, which is new obj, and then I'll also add a key name. So let's say new key, and then I'll assign some attributes. You see enumerable here. If I set it to true, and I also give it a value, let's say new value, and I'll console log new obj dot new key, and let me just stylize it a bit. New key. Okay, so let's run this. So as you can see, I'm able to add a new key to new obj. It has new value, and we are also able to iterate over it. Reason being that its enumerable value is true. Let's turn it to false. So if I turn it to false and run this piece of code again, I still have that value inside this object, but now it's not iterating over it. So this is what key should be enumerable rule mean. So if a particular property is added to an object, its enumerable descriptor should be true. Okay, so now what about prototype chaining? Let's start off by creating a chain first. So I have 2 objects here, new obj and parent obj. So what I'll do is that I'll assign new obj's proto parent object. So what happens is that now new obj inherits all the properties from parent object. Let's start off by running this piece of code. Node index.js. So you see now what happens is the for in loop first of all iterates over user ID, ID, title completed, which are the current object's own properties, and then it moves to its prototype chain, which is prop1 and prop2. We can chain more things. So for example, I'll say I'll create a new one, parent obj2 with property values 3 and 4, and then I'll do parent obj dot proto parent obj2, and let's run now. So now what happens is that own object properties are iterated, then its parents, and then again its parents. Cool. So this is how for in loop handles prototype chaining. Let's move on to the next part to it. Let's try to add some non-enumerable properties to the prototype chain. So what I'll do is that I'll remove prop4 and prop2 from parent object, and I'll let it be. The next thing that I'll do is that I'll define a new property, object dot define property parent obj prop2 enumerable false. Okay, and then obj2 prop4 enumerable false. I'll also send value 1 to 3, value 4 5 6. Okay. Oops. So now if I run this piece of code again, I am not getting prop2 and prop4 because those are not of type enumerable. So as I said during the start of this video, it adheres to the two rules, not being symbol and being enumerable as well, and it applies for every prototype chain that for in loop goes to. So this is how for in loop works with respect to prototype chain.
Hey guys, if this video was helpful to you in any manner, please subscribe or leave a like.